I I didn't believe when they sent me message. I I'm cry a lot. You can confirm that. I don't. It was very difficult moments for the country, for families, for friends, for teammates. Are devastated. Very sad news.
Those were Cristiano Ronaldo's words when he finally spoke publicly about the death of Diogo Jota. But there was something unusual about the way Ronaldo talked about him. He didn't begin with football. He didn't begin with goals, trophies, Liverpool, or Portugal's history. He began with the moment he received the message, the disbelief, and the fact that he cried. And months later, Ronaldo would reveal another part of the story that many people had been asking about: why he wasn't at Jota's funeral.
It was a shock moment. We still feel the aura there in the national team when you put the shirt, because Diogo was one of us.
One of us. 4 words, but they tell us something important. Jota wasn't simply another footballer Ronaldo had crossed paths with during his career. He was part of the Portugal group, part of the dressing room, and someone Ronaldo had literally been standing beside only weeks before his death. And that is what makes this story so difficult. The last time Ronaldo and Jota shared the Portugal shirt, nobody knew it would be the last time. Only weeks before Jota's death, Portugal had won the Nations League. Ronaldo and Jota had celebrated the trophy together, surrounded by their teammates. Jota had been playing for Liverpool, his career was going well, and his personal life had also entered a new chapter after his marriage. Then on July 3, 2025, everything changed. Ronaldo's first public reaction was not a long speech. It was a short message that sounded almost impossible to believe.
It doesn't make sense. We were just together in the national team. You had just gotten married. To your family, your wife and your children, I send my condolences and wish them all the strength in the world. I know you will always be with them. Rest in peace, Diogo and Andre. We will all miss you.
Read those words again, and one detail stands out. We were just together in the national team. Ronaldo wasn't talking about a memory from years earlier. He was talking about someone he had just seen, just trained with, and just celebrated alongside. And when he mentioned Jota's wife and children, the message moved beyond football completely. Ronaldo wasn't only remembering a teammate. He was speaking to a family that had suddenly lost someone who had been expected to come home. Months later, Piers Morgan asked Ronaldo a question that took the story somewhere deeper. Where was he when he found out? What did he actually feel in that moment? And for once, there was no trophy, no stadium, and no crowd around Ronaldo. There was simply a message arriving while he was with Georgina.
I was with Gio alone in our period of rest. I was there in the gym in the morning with Gio. I didn't believe when they sent me messages. I cried a lot. Gio can confirm that.
That is very different from what people might imagine when they see a short social media tribute. The original post was public and carefully written. This answer was different. Ronaldo was describing the moment itself. Disbelief first, then tears. He wasn't trying to make the story bigger. If anything, he made it smaller, bringing it back to the private moment when he received the news.
It was a very difficult moment for everyone. For the country, for families, for friends, for teammates. A disaster. Very sad news.
And then Ronaldo connected change, and why he no longer wants to plan too far into the future.
This is why, something that I mentioned before, that you have to enjoy the moments and don't plan much for the future. I'm not planning things in the long terms, only short terms, because everything can change in one moment or another moment.
For Ronaldo, that became one of the lessons of Jota's death. A footballer's career can look completely secure. A player can be at a major club, playing for his country, building a family, and looking toward the next season. But Ronaldo was now talking about something. Football cannot control the future. And that is why his next words about Jota were not really about what Jota had achieved. They were about the presence he had left behind.
So we have to be happy to be here and live the moment, enjoy the life, because the future only God knows. But it was a shock moment. We still feel the aura there in the national team when you put the shirt, because Diogo was one of us.
There it is again. Diogo was one of us. Ronaldo had already said it once in another form, when he wrote that they had just been together. Now he was saying it months later, in conversation, without a trophy ceremony or a tribute happening around him. The message was simple. When Portugal puts on that shirt, Jota's absence is still felt. Then Morgan asked something even more personal. What kind of person was Jota away from the pitch? This was no longer about the accident, the funeral, or even Portugal. It was simply a question about the man Ronaldo had known as a teammate.
Very good guy. A quiet guy, a good player, as you know, but he's not a guy that speaks too much. He was very level-headed.
The answer is almost striking because of how ordinary it sounds. Ronaldo didn't describe some larger-than-life personality. He described someone quiet, good, and level-headed. And then he added something that showed their relationship wasn't simply professional.
I really liked to meet him, to share with him some great moments. But it was sad.
Those words don't need much interpretation. Ronaldo had shared moments, but Ronaldo's thoughts didn't stop with the teammate he had lost. He also spoke about the people Jota had left behind. Jota had a young family, and Ronaldo said he had the opportunity to speak with them and offer his support. Again, the focus moved away from football and toward the people who were actually living through the loss.
I had the opportunity to speak with their family and to give support.
And then Ronaldo said something that explains why the tragedy had affected the way he thought about life.
Everything is gone because of one moment. So we have to enjoy the life, Piers. So it's hard.
That sentence is difficult precisely because Ronaldo didn't try to turn it into a lesson for everyone else. He simply said what the situation had made him realize. Everything can change in one moment. And for someone who had spent his entire life controlling as much as possible, training, preparation, recovery, discipline, performance, this was something no amount of preparation could control. But there was still one unanswered question. If Ronaldo cared so much about Jota, why wasn't he at the funeral? Other teammates were there. The absence was noticed. People discussed it. Ronaldo's sister even faced questions about it publicly. Eventually, Piers Morgan asked Ronaldo directly, was it really because he didn't want the funeral to become a spectacle around him?
Two things. People criticize me a lot as I say I don't care about that, because when you feel your conscience is good, free, you don't have to worry what people say. But one of the things I don't do after my father died, I've never been in a cemetery again.
That was the first reason Ronaldo gave. He connected his decision directly to the death of his father and said he had not returned to a cemetery since then. But there was another reason, and this one had everything to do with being Cristiano Ronaldo.
And second, as you say, and you mentioned, and you know me and you know my reputation, wherever I go is a circus. I don't go also because if I go, the attention goes to me. And I don't want this kind of attention.
That is Ronaldo's explanation in his own words. Whether someone agrees with the decision is a personal judgment, but the documentary doesn't need to make that judgment for the viewer. The important thing is that Ronaldo himself explained why he stayed away. His experience with funerals after his father's death, and his belief that his presence would pull attention toward him. But Ronaldo wasn't finished. He wanted to make another point. He said he didn't need to be physically standing at the front of the funeral for people to know that he cared. In his view, the cameras were not proof of what he had done privately.
I don't need to be in the first line for people to see me. I don't need to be in the cameras to see what I do. I do things behind the scenes, my friend.
That sentence gives the viewer a different way to understand the absence. Ronaldo wasn't saying he didn't care. He was saying that he didn't believe caring required a public appearance. And he had already told Morgan that he had spoken with Jota's family and offered support.
I was thinking of his family. I don't need cameras to see what I do.
So the story now had two sides. One was visible. Ronaldo wasn't at the funeral. The other was something he described privately. Receiving the news, crying, speaking with the family, and remembering Jota as a teammate he genuinely liked. The important distinction is that we can document what Ronaldo said. We don't have to invent what he was feeling beyond that. Perhaps the most revealing phrase Ronaldo used was not about the funeral at all. It was "Diogo was one of us." That phrase puts Jota inside a group that means something very specific to Ronaldo, the Portugal national team. And Jota wasn't just a squad member passing through. He had become part of the generation that played alongside Ronaldo.
Diogo was one of us.
There is something powerful about hearing Ronaldo say that months after the death, the World Cup, the next tournament, the next Portugal match, All of those things continue. Players change, generations move forward. But when Ronaldo said they still felt Jota's aura when they put on the national team shirt, he was describing a memory that remained inside the group. And then almost a year later, the story came back to Ronaldo and the Portugal shirt. Portugal faced Croatia at the 2026 World Cup. They came back to win 2-1. After the final whistle, Ronaldo put on Diogo Jota's number 21 shirt. It happened on the eve of the first anniversary of Jota's death, turning an ordinary World Cup victory into another moment of remembrance.
Unbelievable, we knew it before the game. It was a so special moment. We speak today, our group, about that. The coincidence of life, it's unbelievable. I was amazed, because the situations of today, it means a lot to us. Not only because we won the game, but also the way.
This time, Ronaldo's tribute was impossible to miss. There was no question about whether he had attended an event. There was no funeral. There was no controversy about cameras. There was simply a football match, a Portugal shirt, and Jota's number 21 being worn by the captain who had once shared the dressing room with him. And Ronaldo followed that moment with a message that was even shorter.
We won for us, Diogo and Portugal. Let's go.
A year earlier, Ronaldo had written, "It doesn't make sense." Now he was standing on a World Cup pitch wearing Jota's number after a Portugal victory. The circumstances had changed completely, but the memory had not disappeared. If anything, the number 21 had become another way for Portugal to keep Jota inside the story. Strip away the arguments, the headlines, and everything people assumed about Cristiano Ronaldo, and his own words leave us with a surprisingly simple picture. He said he cried when he received the news. He called Jota a very good, quiet, level-headed guy. He said he enjoyed sharing great moments with him. He said he spoke with Jota's family and offered support. He explained why he didn't attend the funeral. And he said that when Portugal puts on the national team shirt, they still feel Jota's presence.
Diogo was one of us.
That may be the line that stays with you. Not because it is the longest, not because it is the most dramatic, but because it tells us exactly where Ronaldo placed Jota in his memory, not outside the group, inside it. Cristiano Ronaldo could have spent the entire interview talking about football. Instead, when the conversation turned to Diogo Jota, he talked about crying, family, friendship, time, and the fragility of life. He explained why he stayed away from the funeral, but he also made clear that he had spoken with the family and supported them away from the cameras. And almost a year later, when Portugal returned to the biggest stage in football, he wore Jota's number 21.
We will all miss you.
Those were Ronaldo's words on the day Jota died. A year later, the shirt said something without needing a speech, number 21. And perhaps that is the simplest way to understand everything Ronaldo said about Diogo Jota. He didn't pretend to have an explanation for something that had no explanation. He didn't turn Jota into a statistic. He remembered him as a person, quiet guy, a good guy, a teammate, one of them. And for Cristiano Ronaldo, that was enough to say exactly where Diogo Jota still belonged.
Diogo was one of us.
And that is how Cristiano Ronaldo remembered him.